Today we'll be taking a look at Rise of the Tomb Raider on the Xbox One and the Potato Masher. If this is the first video you've seen of mine, the Potato Masher is a $375 PC custom built in 2014 and designed to compete with the PS4 for the rest of its life cycle. Of course, today we're comparing the Potato Masher to the Xbox One because the game isn't out for the PS4 until this fall, but the idea is the same. The goal is not to pick on consoles, but to show that PC gaming can be just as good or better for the same money. The project was started by the Casual Shenanigans Gaming Podcast, so go check us out using the link on screen. You can support the Potato Masher project and my channel by tossing me a few bucks on Patreon, which helps me buy game codes and review games sooner, and you can also see all Potato Masher reviews a few days early. For those of you who are supporting me already, thank you, I really appreciate it. Alright, let's get to it. Let me start by saying I will be testing Rise of the Tomb Raider on the PS4 when it comes out later this fall. However, the game is already gaining a reputation of being extremely demanding and well optimized on the PC, so I didn't want to wait that long before seeing if the Potato Masher could handle it. On the Xbox One, the game runs at a somewhat shaky 30 FPS at 1080p, except for cutscenes where it runs at 1440 by 1080. On the Potato Masher, I locked the frame rate at 30 FPS and was able to run at very high settings. The highest textures require a GPU with 4GB of VRAM, so I did have to leave that setting on high, but everything else was cranked all the way up with the exception of anti-aliasing, which was set to 2x SMAA. Anti-aliasing is one of those things that's a little more subjective, so I never run it all the way up. I feel like it's definitely not worth the performance hit, and I still consider this to be very high settings, but of course you can use whatever settings you prefer. Right away, I was very impressed with how good this game looks. On both platforms, Rise of the Tomb Raider is a graphical showcase that demonstrates just how beautiful games can be these days. The in-engine cutscenes are some of the best I've ever seen, and the lighting, material, and particle effects are top-notch. Both platforms have excellent textures, view distances, models, and hair. The Xbox One is presumably using an updated version of AMD's TressFX, while the Potato Masher uses NVIDIA's Pure Hair technology. On the highest setting, the Potato Masher's hair modeling looked about identical to the Xbox One, so if you're the type of person who gets really excited by proprietary rendering technologies, there's no clear winner when it comes to the hair. At a glance, both versions are very good, and somewhat comparable. You might even think the Xbox One looks just as good as the Potato Masher. However, the Potato Masher does look better than the Xbox One in a few key areas. The Potato Masher is able to make use of NVIDIA's excellent HBAO Plus ambient occlusion model. This results in more accurate and softer lighting and shadows, and a sense of realism that the Xbox's lighting model can't quite replicate. In these examples, you can clearly see the difference. You can also see that the Potato Masher has more tessellation, which adds a level of depth to the ground, walls, and mountains. The PC version also offers sun-soft shadows, which result in less pixelated hard edges on shadows and a softer diffusion pattern that's very good looking. While the Xbox One version absolutely looks fantastic, the PC version is graphically superior if you have strong enough hardware. The Potato Masher had no problem sustaining 30 FPS in any area, which is better than I can say for the Xbox One. Frame drops and light screen tearing were common on the console version, so I hope the PS4 version improves on that when it releases this fall. Fast-paced platforming and action games like Tomb Raider are ideal for playing at 60 FPS or higher. However, Tomb Raider is a very demanding game, so while the Potato Masher handled 30 FPS just fine, 60 FPS was quite a bit more difficult. While the CPU and RAM usage stayed about normal, the GPU just couldn't keep up. At very low, there were constant frame drops at 1080p, and in fact the game almost never went above 45 FPS. So, I dropped the resolution to 900p, and at low settings the Potato Masher was able to hit its 60 FPS target fairly consistently. However, entering and leaving cutscenes still produced significant frame rate drops, and reducing the settings to very low would disable shadows, making the game look significantly worse. So, I decided to drop to 720p and high settings, where it ran much better. Is it better to have 60 FPS or 1080p? The visual difference between high and very high isn't much, so look at this comparison and see for yourself. Personally, I would much rather have 1080p in this situation, but you can always go higher than that. Obviously, 60 FPS at 1440p was never going to work on the Potato Masher, given that 60 FPS didn't work at 1080p. However, medium settings at 30 FPS did work pretty well at 1440p. While shadow resolution and anti-aliasing left something to be desired, the game ran well and still looked good. Just for grins, I tried 4K on very low settings and it was just as bad as you'd expect. Definitely not playable, which is becoming more and more common for 4K on the Potato Masher. The Potato Masher has had a few rough reviews lately. While Battlefront and Rainbow Six Siege ran very well, Just Cause 3, Black Ops 3, and Assassin's Creed Syndicate have all been rough. We're entering a busy season for game releases, and it's nice to see a tough but well-optimized game that really pushes the Potato Masher to its limits without being hamstrung by game-breaking bugs or stability issues. Rise of the Tomb Raider is a worthy follow-up to the series reboot, and it shines on the Potato Masher. This game could very well be a graphical benchmark for years to come, and it ran great. If you enjoyed this video, check out the original build video or any of the other Potato Masher videos linked on screen. You can also follow me on Twitter, check out the Casual Shenanigans Gaming Podcast, or support the project on Patreon. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.